delighted to serve under your chairmanship today, Mr McCabe, and I'd like to congratulate the honourable member from Bath for bringing this extremely important debate to Westminster Hall. It is important to be speaking in this debate on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, which are universal and therefore must be applied both at home in the UK and internationally. I don't wish to reiterate the information already relayed so well by honourable colleagues, and therefore will focus briefly on some issues which have been highlighted as part of my own work on the International Development Select Committee, who are currently, as described, undertaking an inquiry into the Sustainable Development Goals. One very pertinent, important issue that I'd like the Minister to respond to is that of data collection, governmental data collection, and beyond from a variety of sources. We must be able to evidence the implementation of the goals and the indicators that we have set. There are a great many ways to collect data which are informative and necessary across the UK and in developing countries. And in many countries we must firstly gain a baseline of where we are now, because such data has never been collected, but then we must also have data that gives us understanding of the progress towards full implementation that is being made. As I've said, yes, I would indeed.
I think the honourable member is making a very good point, and does she agree that many developing countries are going to have difficulty in collecting this data, and does she think it could be a great opportunity for our DFID to do everything they can possibly do to assist those countries in meeting the required standard?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention, and I agree entirely, and I think that this is one of the areas that it is key that we show leadership in, and that we have very good historical ability and understanding of that we can certainly lend our expertise to the rest of the world and the developing countries. Data, I feel, must be gathered from various sources. In example, governmental data to give an example, child marriage, is linked with the legal status, often of child marriage, if that data exists at all. In countries where it is illegal but still exists, such child marriages, I'm informed, are often not conducted in a setting that would be registered. They are cultural ceremonies and therefore unrecorded. People know they're happening, but the data itself occludes this. We must therefore gain accurate data, and so governmental data may not in itself be accurate. Household survey data is required, as is technology, in terms of using mobile phone data, imaging data, looking at other modes to make sure that data is accurate. And in order that we can access people, particularly women, who may feel too vulnerable to provide accurate data to governmental agencies who are collecting it. Therefore, I'd like the Minister to comment upon the types of support DFID is providing for data collection, and particularly use of technology in data collection, and importantly, data verification, and not just the use of face value data statistics. I will indeed.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. And further to that point, there is also on data, there is also the issue of the disaggregation of data, and obviously in terms of what the targets are, in terms of leaving no one behind, the data needs to be very articulate and specific, not least in terms of groups that could easily be overseen in terms of ethnic minorities, for instance, and indigenous peoples. So how DFID deals with its own statistics is hugely important.
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention. He shows his expertise in the area, and I think disaggregated data will be crucial in terms of our understanding of whether or not we meet indicators when those are broken down. I'd like to just briefly, before I finish, bring up another part of the implementation that is particularly important in my mind, and that is the Leave No One Behind agenda. In terms of disability, I have been fortunate as a member of the International Development committee to visit a number of developing countries, but what I must say is that I have visited very few projects which have reached out and undertook interventions for people with disability. Many of these people continue to be left behind, to be marginalised and missing from the programmes that I have had access to so far. Do we have data on their numbers? This may vary across countries, obviously, but what are we doing to ensure that people with disability are not continually left behind, that we don't think we're doing enough because we're simply not reaching out and noticing that they're there? I think this should also be integral to DFID programmes. In summing up, because I'm aware of time and we want the Minister to be able to respond into the debate, the SDGs are a welcome step forward. Their implementation is complex, it requires funding, but also, I'd agree, as other members have said, investment, so it's a partnership. Data collection will be key and verification, but what a worthwhile aim it is to make sure that we implement the Sustainable Development Goals and that the most vulnerable people across our world are no longer left behind.
Yes,